Good evening. I wasn't planning to come with a question this evening, but I read something last night, and it's like any book you'll be reading and something will present itself, and you think, I'll keep reading and the answer will be there, and the other things were important, but not to the question. It was by Robert Schwartz, and there was discussion about how when one finds compassion, it also sometimes tends to be accompanied by guilt, and that by surpassing and learning to surpass that guilt through compassion, we grow. Why is it that compassion often comes with guilt? Or a side order of guilt, I guess.
The original guilt, and this is not the original sin, we do desire to be clear. The original guilt is one that is shared by all in exploring consciousness. The original guilt is that you agreed to be in human form, and therefore you have agreed to this big messy place that you call earth and life. It means that you are a part of all of it, all of the suffering, all of the fear, all of the cruelty, all of the hunger, and all of the goodness. And so guilt, like all the emotions, is an invitation for expansion. And so you could start with guilt and evolve into compassion. Or you could begin with compassion and experience guilt. And the reason for this is because both those energies, both those emotions, both those frequencies connect you to all that is. To have true compassion means that you feel compassion for all life, that you feel compassion for the difficulty of expansion, and you feel compassion for all that is experienced by those in form, not just here in this dimension, but all form, where there is chaos and growth. That expansion can feel good and it can feel bad, that there are beginnings and what are perceived as endings, that there are mistakes. Compassion, at its highest form, is one of only of connection. And yet to hold that frequency is very difficult in your forms. It is very difficult in this dimension. It is much easier to hold guilt, to feel responsible for that which exists. And in a way, you are partly responsible, but only through the concept that we are all one. And it is very tricky in the human form to evolve through emotion. And yet many of you are doing quite a marvelous job, quite a magnificent job, quite an impressive job, sorting emotion, naming emotion, validating emotion, exploring how to transform it. And so each vibration in the emotional scale will connect you to many similar frequencies. And guilt and compassion will always be connected, because guilt reminds you to feel more than just peace. Compassion reminds you to feel connected. And guilt is the lower frequency of compassion that connects you to all that is, the past, and what could possibly happen. And so in your minds, when you create the illusion of guilt, because it does not really exist, when you create the illusion of guilt, it is often over something that has already happened in past, or it is something that you are projecting into the future. And sometimes you worry with great guilt for someone else, and they are not even aware. And you create wonderful stories, quite detailed, quite rich stories. We are always impressed at all that you create in your minds. And if you were to evolve that guilt a little bit more into a higher frequency without the fear, without the worry, without the projection of that which you do not desire, if you would evolve it, you would expand into compassion. And so you will find that you will often dance back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so we remind you, the guilt is just an awareness that in deciding to be great adventurers that you are, to explore all of the emotions, the most painful, the most limiting, the most devastating of the emotions. It expands your capacity to know the higher frequencies. You could not know courage without fear. You would not know kindness without cruelty. And so that which you have agreed to means that many others must participate. And that is the frequency of compassion, which is connectedness with that which feels bad. And so as long as you are in human form, with the ego that has provided for judgment, to keep you safe. And now you are evolving that egoic body to serve the soul self, to learn, to create, to explore, the delightful adventure of expanding without the suffering. And it has not yet been done here. And we admire you for desiring to step into this role, to create for the sheer joy of it, without so much mess and so much confusion and so much pain. And you will do this. And that is when you will know compassion with peace, and guilt will be evolved. And we see that you do not often understand. And even when you catch a glimpse of it, it is very hard for your form, your consciousness to hold this truth. That you are evolving the lower frequency emotions into higher forms. And that has not existed here. Compassion on this planet is very new. Above guilt was pity. And those two are not very high in the emotional scale, in the vibration, in the frequency, in the feeling place of them. Compassion is new, that it would be experienced by many in a way that is empowering instead of disempowering. So guilt and pity are disempowering. They do not contribute in the way you want them to contribute, in the way you want to contribute, in the way you have decided you would like to contribute. Compassion at the highest level is an acceptance of all that is, an acceptance that the negative emotion, the pain, the separation, the hardship, and the challenge is part of that which allows great exploration and great diversity.
Thank you.